Well, these awful revelations about the banks mean that the company tax issue is bound now to be brought into focus. New modelling shows that by 2027-28, when the government's planned big business tax cut is fully implemented, the big four banks would get $3.7 billion more in tax savings than the $9.5 billion originally projected over the first 10 years of the policy. So we're talking about, $13 billion in tax savings. That's based on data by the Australia Institute. Now, admittedly, they're a left-wing outfit. But the Commonwealth Bank, they say, from their research, would be a big winner with a forecast $4 billion tax cut over the next decade. Westpac and ANZ would get more than $3 billion, NAB $2.6 billion. Now, as you know, the government has already passed legislation to lower the company tax rate for businesses with a turnover of up to $50 million. The Senate is currently refusing to pass legislation that would apply a rate of 25% to all businesses, including banks, by 2026-27. Now, some coalition backbenchers are now talking about the major banks not receiving the tax break, which would be ridiculous. You can't have a differential system of taxation. But Pauline Hanson today is calling a press conference at 11 o'clock in Brisbane. And I think what she's going to say is that the federal government should pass, amongst other things, the cost of the Banking Royal Commission back onto the banks, and that what I've been arguing for some time, the banks should be made to provide compensation to those who have been dudded immediately. I just want to talk to Pauline to check what exactly she is on about, and she's going to do this at 11 o'clock this morning. Pauline, good morning.
Good morning, Alan.
What are you talking about?
Well, exactly that. The bank should pay for the Royal Commission, actually quarantine the money from the company tax cuts that they will be eligible for, and that's to pay compensation to primary producers, anyone that's been wronged by the banks, even their legal costs. Alan, we've seen people, and we're still dealing with people that have lost their properties, and we've been actually working closely with them and the banks. We've actually been able to save, through my office loan, about 6 people foreclosure on their properties, and the banks have been talking with us for over a year now. But there's got to be compensation. They've got to pay for this, their legal costs, and pay for the Royal Commission.
That's an excellent point. Yes, you've been talking, so have I. And we've had some wins with farming companies and way out as far as Winton, as I've told my listeners before. The banks are impossible foreclosing on people who have never missed a payment. What you're saying is, if we wait until the conclusions of, and already, sadly, Pauline, there have been suicides as a result of these people being dudded. If we wait until the conclusions of the Royal Commission, many of these people will be gone.
They will be gone. There's a lot of people that we know have been the wrong done by them. We actually, in a review tribunal, we actually got compensation to be paid out to them up to $2 million. That was One Nation. It was at $300,000, but we actually negotiated with the government, so we got a $2 million compensation. That's so people don't have to go through the legal system, the court system. Another thing is a lot of these people cannot afford the legal costs. They're up against the banks. So I think that's totally unfair.
Absolutely.
They have to set up a board so they're not up for legal costs on top of it, which they can't afford to fight the banks. I think this needs to be done in a well-measured, mannered way so that the people will find justice with this. The banks have to compensate, and I'll be talking to Matisse Cormant, which I've already had light discussions with him, but he's over in Belgium now at the moment. So he knows it's on his radar now, what I'm targeting. So he's going to expect it to have discussions with me when he gets back into Australia.
Yes, it's interesting when they announced the terms of the Royal Commission, they did not include anything about compensation.
No, they didn't. And another thing that needs to be targeted with this Royal Commission, they need to go after the receivers and the managers and the liquidators. They're the ones that have destroyed these farming families.
Yeah, doing the bidding of the banks.
Correct. And so the creditors have paid for it.
She's right here. She's right. This is true.
One case is that it should have cost only about $12,000 to $15,000 to move cattle on a property. They charged them $90,000. These people have been ripped off.
Definitely.
They controlled the property for years on end, made them go under. They had no control over it.
That is absolutely right. This woman is absolutely right. You are absolutely right in what you're saying. The other point here, Pauline, is that if these circumstances has overtaken such people, they don't have the resources to make an application to the Royal Commission anyway. Even if they were given the opportunity to appear, they can't afford to put the argument together.
That's exactly right, and that's what I'm saying. I want to talk to the government about it, to structure and a department that they can hear these claims, and there has to be mediation with the banks.
Yeah.
Forget all about these court cases. Forget about these long dragged-out court cases. The banks must pay for these people for their legal costs previously as well.
Good on you. What you said is the coalition have been tough on unions and blue-collar crime, but when it comes to the banking sector, they've been very weak-kneed. I mean, they argued on 23 occasions in the Parliament, Turnbull and Morrison, against a banking inquiry. Pauline, you're most probably too busy to notice, but there's part of a story today in the media which says this: a bank will help foot the bill for a glitzy pre-election political fundraiser to be fronted by Treasurer Scott Morrison and his deputy Kelly O'Dwyer, at the same time as they're resisting calls for a royal commission into the scandal-plagued banking sector. The 1,200 to 2,500 a table breakfast, scheduled for 10 days after Mr Morrison delivers his first budget, this was way back, will be held under the banner of co-sponsor National Australia Bank. Miss O'Dwyer, who was a former advisor to Mr Costello, was an NAB executive before she inherited Higgins from her former boss in 2010. They were actually beneficiaries of the banks way back. They're not likely to get into the queue to go after them now, are they?
No, they're not. And I'll tell you something, Alan. This is just not the coalition. This is the Labor Party as well, because the people we've been speaking to go back many years, 10 plus years. So the whole fact is they're both in bed together. I don't care what the Labor Party's screaming from rooftops. They want the Royal Commission. On the first day of my meeting with the Prime Minister, I wanted this Royal Commission because it was only through my former Senator, Rod Cullerton, who had lost his property from the banks. That's why I knew what was going on. And for Barnaby Joyce to come out, anyone come out and say they didn't know how deep it was, I don't believe a word they're saying because I could see it.
Good on you.
You're
right.
On the wall. And
you're right.
That's why. And this is another thing. A lot of legislation, they're actually, even the super industry, they're going after the industry's superannuation scheme, but they're not targeting the banks with their superannuation. And that ripped up a lot of money from the people. And this is why, we've kept them accountable and we're questioning a lot of their legislation that the others haven't got the bloody guts to do it or they haven't got the will to do it. So that's why it was through our Senator we managed to get this Royal Commission up.
Yep, good on you. Well, let's see where it heads, Pauline. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Alan.
Not at all. Pauline Hanson, that's what she's saying there is absolutely correct. It's absolutely